So in today's class, we're going to be using the Colab, which we've used before, or at least attempted to use in one of the prior homeworks. The difference is, well, then the very last homework, which is going to be homework number 7, which is actually already available online, is going to follow from this example. So if you follow everything I did in class today, then homework number 7 should be fairly straightforward. Unlike the previous homework where you could attempt it, and if it didn't work, you can explain what you did. In this one, it's going to work, or it's not going to be right. So if it doesn't work for you, you can upload what you did do, and then obviously there'd be partial credit. If it doesn't work, then there's no way you're going to get all the credit. I've already put the homework online, so I'll start with the end in mind, and I'll show you what the homework's about. It's about Cards Against Humanity. It really is about Cards Against Humanity. What you're going to do in the homework, and this is online, but I feel like some of these things are harder to read and understand than if someone explains it later. You read it, you're like, oh, okay, that's it. So so these are the stars here on the left. They're put up on the screen. But apparently this is like a really popular game. So 90% of the people who reviewed it gave it 5 stars. You can see like it says 1%. It's not really 1%. I'll click on that now so you can see it. So still like close to 1% of 33,000 reviews is still a lot of reviews. I'll click on the ones that say 1. So if you see here where it says 1 on the upper left, let me see if you can see my cursor. Can you see the cursor a little bit when I move it? Yeah? So you can see here that even though it said 1%, that was an estimate. But 1% of 33,000 is roughly, in this case, it was 519. So there are 519 reviews that had 3 stars. And if we go back up, the other one that had a little bit was the one that had 2 stars. And there was 215 reviews. So what you're going to do for the homework is you're going to use somewhere between 100 and, or I think I said, let me just read from the homework. Oops, that's the wrong homework. So these are the instructions that are actually up there now. Okay, so you're going to get to choose how many you do. Yeah.
So I was playing this game in the States with 2 Asian, like they came over to do an internship, and everyone else was American, or the culture was American. This game is not good for people who don't have like American culture.
Yeah, that's one of the reviews actually you'll read.
They didn't understand any of it. We were all laughing. They were just like, what? Everything. They could speak English, but they would not laugh at any of it. They just wouldn't get the jokes, or they get the context. Like the one with the Trail of Tears, for example.
Yeah.
They had no idea what that was. We were all laughing at the part of the joke, and things like that. So it was funny to see how their perspective is like the game. Because we really enjoy it.
You didn't really have to change it to have things that are culturally meaningful. Well, thankfully for your assignment, you're not going to actually play the game, so don't worry about that part. You are, however, going to go through those reviews, and because I want you to use in your training examples for your AI algorithm and your testing examples the same number from each one of the star ratings, and there's 5 different star ratings. We're already going to be limited to not using more than 215. So your training set, and the combined training and test set spreadsheet, is going to be a CSV file. It's going to have up to 1,000, but as little as 500. You can decide that. And the approach you take to actually get the data from Amazon into your spreadsheet could be really quick, or it could take you some time to decide you want to do it manually. I don't really care how you do it. But you'll need at least 100 each one, which means you'll have 500 total. What you're going to take in your homework is basically the review. So in this case, it's the part B, part contents are mainly, as you said, based on American British culture and Westerners. You don't have to worry about reading that. But you are going to take that, and you're going to put it into a spreadsheet, and that's going to be the post for the review. And then you're going to tag it. Your tag is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In this case, it's going to be 2. This is a 2-star rating. And then, once you do what I'm going to show you today in class, your algorithm is going to use part of what you enter into training and part of what you enter into test. And it's going to tell you how good your neural network that you train does, guessing what star review the user is going to provide based on what written they provide. So if you follow the example from today, you'll be changing the data, you won't be using as much data. It's going to be a review, not a help desk. I'm going to show you a totally different example. But you should be able to do this part. This part up to now is 95% of the. What you'll turn in is you'll upload it to Moodle, your Colab file, and you'll save, which will be a modified version of what I'm going to show you today. And then your CSV file, .csv file, which is what's going to contain all of your training and test data combined with your reviews and ratings. I'm going to upload your file. I'm going to run it in Colab, which means I'm just going to click a bunch of stuff. And it better all work. And then I'm going to look at the result. I'm going to open up your CSV to make sure that it does have this data in it. And then it's got at least 500, and then it's got at least the same number of each of the stars. And if it works, and it's got that, then you're going to get 95 points for the homework. The last 5 points of the homework, you're going to have to do a little bit more than what's in Colab already. You're going to do it in Colab, so a little bit more. You're going to allow me to input a phrase, a review, just one phrase, and your algorithm is going to tell me what it predicts a star rating to be. You can do it in one of 2 ways. You can give me an input line where I literally input, or you can just give me a code example that has some text, where I can just take my text, copy and paste it over to the text that's there, and run it, and then it'll tell me what to do. Okay? Let's work the other 5 points. So, for whatever reason, something happens and you just don't know how to do it, then you still get 95 points just by following it. Okay? Any questions on just the structure of the homework or what that's required before I go through the example. I'm going to go through the example, and hopefully the more I can get, I'm going to go through it until class time's over. And then I have office hours next week on Monday still, so spend more time doing it. I'm going to go through the example like they have it in Colab. And then my hope is that I'm going to do my own that's totally different from that I've already kind of worked on before. So that you can see how I modify the Colab example to do my thing. I'm not going to be doing cards for humanity. I am going to be doing a chat that I had 4 different people chatting. And what I did was I decided, could I predict who was chatting based on what was written? So I took 150 examples of chat text from each of 4 different people, so 600 different examples, I think. And then I just labeled it not in star ratings, but just who the person was that spoke. And then I modified this algorithm to train it, and then I read it. So hopefully, if we go through quickly, I don't know because I'm here in real time. So I don't have it all prepared in advance. Then we'll get through all of that. All right, so let's go. So first we want to get to Google Colab. Not Southwest. And we want to open that up. And the advantage, if for those of you, some of you, this is going to be super basic review. I realize that. For some of you, it's not. So we're all here together, so let's just get through it together. When you go through here, one of the advantages of this is that everything's done in the cloud. So you don't have to worry about if your computer happens to be using a different version of Python or Keras or NumPy or Scilern or anything like that, because the versions that it's going to use are there. You also don't have to worry about whether or not your computer is slow, for the most part. If you have a slow internet connection and you're uploading a file or something, obviously it's going to take a little bit more time. But these files are CSV files. They're just text and numbers. So it's not, you're not going to have these humongous files either. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so you do have to worry that your browser is compatible. If you've already run the Colab once, then it should work again. Here, we're going to be using NLP classification solution. And that's I didn't create this file. This is the file that they created as a tutorial. And I think I might have put it available on your last, as a reading assignment, I don't remember. So I'm going to click on that to open it. And because I want to do more than just read it, and I actually want to play around with it, I'm going to click on the Open in Playground button. And now I basically have their code, which as you saw a week ago when Hector was going through the example of the merging of the turtle with the space art style, you can just go through, theoretically just go through and click on everything and it should run. And if you don't read anything, you'll have successfully executed the code and have no idea what you did. So I suggest that as you go through it, you click, you read what's there, you play around with the code a little bit, which we'll do today. I will tell you here that if you go through this example and you click on everything, it will not actually work. So I'm going to show you today something that doesn't actually work. I don't know why it doesn't work, but I'll show you how to fix it. So the first thing we're going to do is import the libraries. Now we're not importing these libraries onto our computer per se. We're just inputting them into our virtual workspace in the cloud. And the libraries we're going to input, you already know what they are because they were in your home. So I'm going to pronounce it Scilern, Pandas, Keras, NumPy. And it's basically either deep learning or generic machine learning libraries that have different types of functions you're going to want to use, and or scientific or mathematical data structure and manipulation libraries. You can go to any one of these, like NumPy, and actually open it up and see what commands are that are available, and descriptions of what they do. If you want to learn more about it or use it maybe for some of your other classes, if you're taking some numerical classes, there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do here. You don't have to worry about that for this homework. But you can, and I recommend that you do a little bit of background reading when you're clicking these buttons, just so you understand a little bit more about what they're doing, which libraries they're accessing, and what kind of manipulation they're doing. So we're just going to click here and wait for that to execute. It's giving me a notice that this wants to know if I want to reset my runtimes, so that basically all the background variables will go to the default variable. So I suggest that you do that when you start from scratch. I'm going to put yes. And all I've done is very excitingly imported those libraries. So there's not really much of an output to that. If you don't click on that and don't import your libraries, when you go to the next step, you're pretty much going to know it, because you're going to get an error that says, I don't know what that command is. Here's the very next thing. What we're going to do here is download a .csv file that's stored on the internet. I'm going to show you how to do this, if you don't know how to do this already. I use Google Drive. I think everybody at the university at least has access to Google Drive. So you can actually just, for your homework, you can upload your .csv file into Google Drive, and then make sure all the share settings are open to everybody, and then copy a URL for that file and replace this section here. So from where it says HTTP to keep the quotes, and there you can just put a direct link to Google Drive to where your CSV file is. And then it's going to bring your data instead of this data. We can actually test that here. So this is part of what I said I'm going to do this in live. We can test that here by, I'm going to just take this link here and copy it without the quotes, and go to a browser here and put that link in, and now it's downloaded it to my computer. Okay, so that's their file. Now, if this was my file that I had saved in .csv, then I could upload my file. What I'm going to do is just upload their file, but I'm going to put it into my Google Drive. No, I lost it. Okay, so I just dragged that .csv file into my Google Drive. Now, I need to find it in my Google Drive. Okay, so now I need to share it. It says private, no compartido. And then this says whatever user in the University of Puerto Rico can see it. I don't know if that's actually enough for it to work. So what I do is I go to permisos and I'm going to change it so that anybody can see it. And why is that important? Because if Google doesn't recognize who's trying to access it, which is your Colab environment, then you could basically not be able to bring it in. So I just put it here on anybody can access it that has the link. So I'm going to save that. And I probably should have copied the link. Let me see. Okay, let's see if it works. Okay, it appears to have worked. So that's taken me to where the file is. Now, if you just put this and replace the other file, it's not going to work. So what you have to do is create, and it's not going to work because it's looking for a file basically that's .csv. And so this URL isn't in that format. So what you have to do is take this is now the ID, everything from here on is the ideal for, is the ID, oh, I'm sorry, not the view. This number after this D slash before the slash view, that's the Google ID, Drive ID for your actual file. So what you're going to do there is now put it into this format. And this is stuff you can figure out on your own too. I'm just trying to make it a little easier. Oops. Well, maybe it will work. I don't know. We're going to find out in real time. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so this is the actual format that should work. It doesn't have the view on the end. I think that's the only difference. I'm going to copy this here without the view on the end, and let's see if it works. So now we're going to go into Colab, and instead of it getting its file from where this particular person had stored it, we're going to see if it can get the file from my drive. So in this case, I didn't modify the file, it's the same file. And we've got this big bad error here. So that didn't work. So now, we're going to go here, copy this, and see if this fixes it. And amazingly, it did. So, you definitely want to use this format, which if you forget, you can look online basically and say, how do you get a direct link to download a file from Google Drive? So, that's it. Any questions on that?
And also upload the CSV.
Absolutely.
Like the upload.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And if you're, remember, you're not constrained in how you do it. Some of you who are more experienced in this environment are going to have a lot more ideas, and this is how you can do it. But I wanted to at least show you one way that you can do it. But yeah, you know, if you're more comfortable with uploading files, like show, there's different ways that you can pull in the file. Thank you. Okay, so all I did there was basically I took their own file, downloaded it, put it into Google Drive, shared it, made all the permissions so that anybody could access it, took the ID from the URL and plugged it into this format that allows that file to be downloaded. Now you can see the difference in the behavior here. If I take this URL and hit enter, it's not going to display the .csv file. It's going to do the same thing the other version did. It's just going to download it. All right, awesome. So we've done that. Now this is just a command here to look at the data, basically showing you that the data that you got is right. You're going to want to run this command when you upload your own data to make sure that it's brought in your reviews from Amazon and it's showing you the tags. This particular data is 4,000 help desk questions on Stack Overflow, and it's coded by 20 different languages or operating systems that the questions relate to. This command here now, we're going to be df, which is sort for the data. The reviews here, they call them tags. I'm sorry, they call them posts. And then the tags are the labels. We can see that now in the Excel file. I'm sorry, in the .csv file, which I don't have open. So let me open one of these so you can see what the data looks like in that file. So you can see the first column is labeled post and the second column is labeled tags. That's going to be really important when you do your file. You can keep the post and tags, or you can call them reviews and stars, or reviews and ratings. It's up to you. If you change those names, you're going to have to change that within the code. So we can see we uploaded the right file. These are some checks that can be run. Here's the number of classes. For them, there should be 20 of them because there's 20 different programs. I'm sorry, the questions relate to 20 different environments or operating systems. And so you can see that there's 20. In your case, how many classes are you going to have in the homework? 5. 5 classes in the homework. Check how many instances of each class. So here again, it's just going into the data it's uploaded that's in DF. It's looking at the tags column, and it wants to see how many instances of each one. So in their case, they have 4,000 total that are divided by 20 different ones, so that's 200 cases of each. In your case, it's not set. I gave you a range in the homework. Does anybody remember what the range can be? It's 500 to 1,000 total, but in this case where it says 200, 200, 200, in your case you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, exactly. Numbers are either going to be 100, 125, 150, 200. But they're all going to be the same. So if it's 100, it's going to be 100, 100, 100. Yes. You'll have more to train from and more to test. The reason I allow for 100, 200, because I don't know, again, some of you have more experience than others. Some of you are going to be able to do some of this data preparation in an automated way. Others of you are going to have to do it because you may have to do it in an automated way. So if you do it manually, don't worry about getting 200. You're not going to be graded. It's not going to be different because you did 100 or you did 200. There we go. For which one?
For any product,
Well, if you want to share that on Yatsa or open comment, that'd be great. If you want to do that, again, you can do it manually. You feel like you have to. If you do it manually, don't do the maximum because that's just taking time you don't need to spend. If you do the 100, that's for the homework. It doesn't change your score as long as your program works. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we've got to run this so we don't get in trouble here. Now determine the number of words in each instance. So here we're still just kind of looking at the data. I'm going to run these two. What this is doing is it's looking at each instant, which you're going to have between 500 and 1,000 total instances. And it's counting the number of words that are in its host. Now remember, here's the question in your piece. So you're going to have also some variability. Some of the reviews are going to be very long reviews, or someone who's very passionate about good or bad, and some of them are going to be very short reviews. When you do your CSV file, you call your review closed. You don't have to change as much stuff. So if you call the ratings tags, then you don't have to change those parts of the code. That's totally fine. Yeah. If you do, just remember to make that change. So you're going to change it. You want to call it instead of post review, for example, instead of tag rating. So once you've uploaded your data, it'll be good as you run these to make sure that the results that you get make sense. Otherwise, it could mean that there was something wrong with the way your data was saved or with the way it was formatted. Okay, so now you've basically got the data. You've kind of looked at the data. If you run this, it's not going to work. I didn't change anything. Someone see why it doesn't work? That's right, yeah. That's exactly right. So they just had an error where they started calling it data, but they didn't find it. Yeah. Once you change this here, and you might as well go ahead and change it here. If not, you'll get the same error. Then it's basically just going to load into X all of the post, all the values from post, and load into Y all the values from tag. In your case, reviews and ratings. Once you've made that fix, you can save it so you don't have to make it again. Okay, so now really, the more time you spend doing a little search on some of these commands, the more you'll understand about what you're doing. I recommend you do that just so you have some knowledge of what it is you're doing. But I will at the other time tell you I don't want to make the homework harder than it's intended to be. You can use a lot of it without changing it and still get a 95 on the homework. Without changing it, without understanding what it is. Here, these are commands that are set up in the libraries to automatically take a big CSV file and partition it in a way so you end up with a bunch of data you can train the network on, and then a bunch of data, smaller percentage of data that you can use to test your trained network on and see how it did. So you don't have a separate testing file and a separate training file. This is just one big file. The software, the program itself is going to decide what it wants to use from one as part of the training and what it's going to use for the other as part of testing. And it's running this function called train test split. You can see, I'll just tell you what this is. You can do a search and find these things out. Right? And I'm telling you this because that's what I hope you do. So test size basically is saying, like, basically it's going to take 1/3, this 0.33 of that CSV file and figure out and fill these in the text. It's only going to train on 67% of the CSV file. It's going to do it randomly, and that's part of what the train test does. The other variable, that you see random state equals 42, that's important for you because if you didn't have that, or you change the number every time you run the program, you take a different ones from your CSV and put it in different ones and put it into text. So every time you run a program, you get a different result. Now, normally it's a good idea when you're running the program for the first time not to do that. To make it random, but it's not really, it's randomly going to do it, but every time it does it, it's going to do it the same way randomly. Because it's fixing the random states before it. So because you've said random state equals 42, that number can be converted to it. As long as it's the same every time, it's still going to randomly pick it out, but every time you run the program, it's going to pick out the same ones. Okay, now we have to start converting the words into things the neural network can understand. They've happened to choose, so remember now, we have all these instances that have all these words. And now what they want to do is say, okay, which of these words come out the most? And we're not going to use all of the words in our neural network. We're going to use some of the words. So this is a number that you could actually also change. You may want to change it. You may not want to change it. Really just kind of depends on what you want to see. But it's always free to change it. So here, they've got max words 1,000. But we could have changed that to 500. And then basically what it's doing, it's setting the maximum number of words that it's going to consider. It's not in that list of 1,000. And after that, it's just going to ignore those words. It's done it based on how often those words appear in the reviews. And when it's done that, then it's assigned a number to each word. That's not the number of times that word appears. That's just the number of the word. Because the neural network's not going to deal with a word. It's got to deal with a number. So from now on, you can see here, the word "the," not surprisingly, shows up a lot. And it's assigned now to number 1. So as far as the neural network is concerned, anytime a review has the word "the," then it's going to be that has number 1. And so here you're going to have a list of 1,000 words because we said that we were going to maximize, we were going to limit to 1,000 the number of unique words that we have. So every unique word has now a number between up to 1,000. And you can see some of these words are questionably words, right? Some of our numbers here, some of them are abbreviations for things. Okay, so now we're going to convert all those words into tokens. We're going to do that for the test set and the training set. Remember, they've already been partitioned randomly. And now what this means is every review, whether it's in the training set or in the test set, is going to have this vector here. It's got either 0 or 1. This particular one has a 0 to start with. So what word is not in there? The thing is, it would be the number 1 word here. Oops, sorry. The. So the code ILTGT. And so that post now is just being converted into information concerning out of the top 1,000 unique words, which of those 1,000 unique words are in that particular instance? So then it's a 0 if it's not in there, it's 1 if it is in there. And that's now how we've taken words, and now we've taken this whole review. We said, I'm just going to ignore the words that aren't that popular, that don't tend to show up. I'm just going to pick up the 1,000 most popular words. I'm going to assign each of those words a label number, 1 through 1,000. And then now I'm going through each of my instances, whether they're the test or training set, and saying, okay, if that word's in there, then it's a 1. If it's not, it's a 0. This command here determines the length of this vector. Now we know already it's got to be 1,000. That's what we decided it was going to be. We had said max words back before as 500, and the length of it would be 500. Only using the top 500 popular words. So len is length for the X-train token of 0 is 1,000. Remember, we have lots of X-train tokens, so we can change that to 4, and it's still going to be 1,000. Okay? Because all of them are the same length. These functions are a little bit trickier to explain, but these have to do now. Now we've put the reviews how we want them. Now we need to put the labels how we want them. And what we're doing is the same thing, basically. We're converting them into numbers. Okay. So now we basically have done the same thing. So if we count here, there should be 20 numbers. And there are, notice how they're all zeros, except one of them. And so this is a little bit different than the other one because in the reviews, we can have multiple, we can have lots of words, right? So out of the top 1,000 popular words, the review might have 20 of those words. So it's going to have the and something else. So we can have, zeros and ones. Here, because there's only one label, in their case, in the example, there's only one label, then all of these have to be 0 except for the label. So all we're doing is the exact same thing. They've spread it out into the vector, except in here now they've done it from labels. This is now showing you, and you'll want to look at these numbers to make sure they make sense in your data. It's basically saying that the training set, it's at 2,680 of the 4,000 instances. It's at 1,320 for the test set. Okay, now we're ready to build and train our model. I'm not going to go into detail here on what these things are doing, but I am going to show you here. a really good website page that I suggest you review on sequential. Sequential is the Keras model that's used in the example. And this is just on the Keras.io page. So if you go through this, it's going to explain what all of the parameters are for the model that you're building. You don't have to change any of this for it to work on the home. But I suggest you look at it to at least know what it is that you're doing. So we're going to run that size. Here we're going to build the model. You're going to get a warning here because one of the commands in the back end is deprecated, but it's going to work. You don't have to worry about that one. And now we're training. So while it's training, I'll review. We uploaded our data. It's all in text. We didn't want to deal with all the words, so we limited the number of words to the 1,000 most popular ones. Then we converted those 1,000, each one of those instances, we converted the review or the post into an array of 1,000, basically indicating with a 1 in the position where that word was in the review. And then we did the exact same thing for the labels, but since there's only one label of 20, there's 20 spaces, but only one of them is going to be 1, the rest of them 0. In your case, you're not going to have 20 spaces, you're going to have 5 spaces. But just like in this case, only one of them is going to be a 1, the other 4 are going to be 0. For the labels, it's probably going to be the same, I think. I would probably leave it at 1,000 and see what happens. So, but that's probably going to be the same. Now, since it's already separated out the training and the test set, it's going to be able to check the accuracy, which is coming in here at 0.728. If you run this over and over and over again, you're always going to get 0.27803030, unless you get rid of that random thing. Remember the random state? If you don't fix the random state, then you're going to get a different result every time. If you choose a different number, you're going to get a different result. You'll get the same result every time it's the same number. This is just showing you the possibilities instead of in number format and value format. And this is just showing you the prediction for 5. So we're already done. We already went through the test set and said, hey, it's 72.8% accurate, which may sound bad, right? Because that would be a C. Most places in the world. But remember, if you randomly selected 1 out of 20, you only be right 5% of the time. So comparing it to 5% of the time, 72% of the time, it's pretty good. In your case, what are you going to be looking for? Well, if it's 1 out of 5 ratings, and you got a rating, you say, I have no idea, it's a 3. On average, you'd be right 1 out of 5 times. You get 0.20 if you do that. I think you're going to find you're going to do a lot better than 0.20. In terms of when we get to 78, I don't know. Let's see what you get. So this is just showing specific instances where the text is how to set the URL through HPAI. Now remember, this isn't the actual text. This is what's comprised within the words. And then it's showing the actual label, and then the predicted. So when it's right, then they're saying, when it's wrong, then they're not. It's just showing here 5 examples. It's showing 5 examples because the program here says for I equals in range top. If you wanted to see 10 examples, then you change that to 10. And that's just that. Here is a blank spot. Here you can put that code I told you for the 5 points. And this is where I'm either going to run it and input something, a text review, or it's going to be a command or a few commands where it's going to basically say like insert, copy, paste your text here. And what I'll be copying here is, I'm just going to call it, let's say it looked like that. Wouldn't work, but let's say it did look like that, right? Then what you would say is insert here. So what I would do when I am grading your homework is I'm going to go and I might pull a review from here. I might pull a review from a totally different product, but I'm just going to pull a review and let's see here. Well, I guarantee it's not going to be a review from your from here. And then I'm going to take that and wherever you tell me, if it was written like this, I would take those words, insert here, and I would insert my text here. Does that make sense? And then I would hit run. Or I'm going to hit run, I'm going to get a prompt, and I'm going to enter, copy, paste, and then it's going to give me the outcome. The outcome is going to be your prediction. That's it. And so that's not in this example. You'll have to work a little harder if you don't know. That's why it's only worth 5 points. Any questions on this? We still have 15 minutes, so I'm going to go start the chat. But before I start, does anybody like Holy Spirit about something? You can do it. Okay? Any questions? So first, I'm just going to go into here. Okay. Okay, so I created a CSV file. I'm using Excel. This may not be obvious to everybody. You're going to have to do, if you use Excel or whatever you want to save as .csv. I'm not sure about the decoding. I used 8. I don't know if it works. So this is a chat comprised of 4 people. Before I open this up, I have to tell you, these are real people. I don't really exactly know what it says. The computer's a little slow. Oh, it's not that required. Let's see what it does here in a second if it doesn't. So you might recall the labels on the headings of the columns before were post and tab. Here I decided to keep post the same, but I changed tag to person, I think. To person. And I literally just wrote a little script to go through 4 people that were chatting, and then filtered out the emojis. And then I put one name as T, D, J, and B. And I put the same number of chats per person. The computer's a little slow. Okay, what I'm going to do here, just to speed things up a little bit, is I already showed you before how you can upload a file into the Colab. So I'm not going to go through that step here again. I created a copy of that environment. And so this part here is exactly the same. I'm just going to run that. Okay. I've already changed this now. Instead of downloading that guy's CSV file for the Stack Overflow example, and instead of changing it to upload my copy of his file, which is what I did here in class already, this ID here, after the ID equals, that ID corresponds to my chat file, my chat CSV file that I already put into Google Drive and shared with all the permissions wide open. And so now you can see here, I'm just confirming that, yeah, it is actually that file. You can see it's post and person, and there's some of the text, and then the letter indicating the person. And you can actually go through here and see all of them to make sure that you got things right. Now you see here I put DF person because I changed it to person. In the original example, it would have said tag. Oh, actually, this is interesting. It reminds me that I took out a person. So I had done 4 persons. Then I realized that one of the persons didn't really chat enough, so I didn't have enough samples for that person. So I actually took it out. So see, now I'm using this running to remind myself that when I created this example a few weeks ago, that I actually don't have 4 people, I only have 3. And I can tell that because I did DF person unique, and there's only 3 unique tags or persons, T, D, and J. And here I counted them, and in fact, I only have 3. Now let's see how many instances I did. I did 150 of each. I did 150 instances of chats that they wrote. for each one. So I had a total of 450. Now I kept post at the top of the sheet. If you want to keep things simple, just keep it post and tag like in the example. If not, just remember that you changed them. So here, I kept post the same. If I had said reviews, then I would have to change this to review. And what this is doing is splitting the text. The last part here in that phrase is splitting it by spaces. So if there's a space, then it's going to count as a different. That's why you saw numbers and other things in there as well. And then here we can see our word count. Our word counts are a lot less. These are chats. People are chatting. They're not reviews. So I wouldn't expect this algorithm to work as well. Well, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to convert these into X and Y. You notice here, I already fixed the data. So that's why it's DF. I just fixed it, so I don't have to keep doing it every time. Here, the training, I've kept it the same. I use a third for the test set. I could change that number. The random state, I actually have changed it. It's 41 I'm using here instead of 42. Because it's not going to affect the result. Most important is to keep it the same initially. And then here I'm looking at X train, but I'm looking at 45. I must have changed that when I was bored. So in this one, 45 is mi nena grande se siente mal y tengo que cuidarla. And X train 5 is super. So that's from the training set instance 5. Now we got to change this all into zeros and ones. You might remember that. Remember, what you want to do here is just look to kind of check, make sure what you're doing makes sense. So this is looking at training instance 0. This array should have a 1,000 in it if I used 1,000 words. If I use less words, then it would have less. Right? You can see here that unless it's just one word, that the chat was one word, then there'd only be one here. Everything else would be 0. But this chat has more than one word that is showing up within the max words. So more than one of them is 1. Here's the length. We used 1,000. Now we're going to go and code the targets like we did before. Right? And we can see here that we only have 3 because there's only 3 persons that were in the chat. Right? Still used 1,000 words, so it's still 1,000 there. The other 3 there is because there's 3 persons. And then you can see the data split. 0.33 of 450 is roughly 300. I'm going to keep the batch size and the epochs the same. Now I'm going to build my model. That worked a lot quicker, as you saw. There's less data than in the example. I apparently changed the epochs to 100. I don't remember doing that. And all of this is running in the cloud, so it's still fast. Okay, now I'm going to test the accuracy, and I'm getting a 45.6%. 45.6%. Pretty bad, right? Still better than random, because random would be what? 33%. Is it meaningfully better? I don't know. You got to play around with this and see. Maybe increase the training set. There are a couple variables that are very different. Less things that have to be predicted, but in a chat, a lot less words. You typically, when someone writes, you're not writing something very long. But we were going to have your example of rating, or someone who's posting a question on a technical help desk, we're really trying to explain the issue we're trying to resolve. So I expect we're going to have a lot more success in training for the home. You can see here beneath it, just to make sure everything's okay in the world. The Y-test array values. Right, that's what we would expect, T's and D's. Here, you're going to have, what are you going to have here instead of T's and D's? Right? Yes, so there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? And it's just showing some of the examples where it got it right. The first one, it got it right. So we got that one right. Next one it got right. Next three, it didn't get any of them right. What bar, Bistro Cafe, CD, get out of it. So maybe more words is something. Give a little bit more going. There's some more here. And that's it. So your homework, you're going to go to hard to mention it because they have 33,000 reviews. You're going to figure out however you want to do it. At least have 100 of each rating. You're going to put that into a .csv file. I'm going to upload that however you feel like it's easiest for you, but at least you've seen an example of how to do it. You're going to run through this, and you follow the process. I think we're going to get 95. It will take you some time to figure out how to get the data into that file. But guess what? In machine learning, a lot of this has to do with how to get the data into the right format that you need it. So that people can experience. And I think to the extent you figure out how to automate some of it, or use some tools that are already that'll help you as you do other projects where you want to get the data in the form. And because Colab is using Google resources, not the computer, this is something that hopefully we'll be able to use in other processes. That's why I'm spending some time on it. After today's class, we're going to get back into non-coding. The homework's already up. Any questions, let me know. My office hours I'll have on Monday. Homework is, we all have Wednesday. Wednesday. Okay. So the homework's due on the 10th, which is Wednesday. Okay. So yeah, I'll have office hours on Monday. Hopefully you don't wait until Wednesday to do this. You all also have them on Wednesday. I think it's kind of a fun exercise. So, what do you want to say? Thanks.